Hello, welcome everyone. Today I am joined by somebody who should be becoming familiar with people who watch this show. I think this is your second time on the Short Bites,
It is.
and you're technically the first repeater. I could count Michael Schutz because he was in the first two episodes, but he only participated in one of the discussions. He was in the intro as well. So I'm going to say you're the first repeat guest. And of course,
Honored.
I'm talking with Jen from Literary Love 123 YouTube channel. And today we are going to discuss Stephen King's short story, The Boogeyman. Welcome back, Jen. And how are things going with you?
Going well. I am recovering from vacation, kind of a little bit of post vacation blues, but I had
Oh,
something to
yeah.
look forward to today, so all is well.
Do you get really sad when vacation time is coming to an end? Because I have
I
found that.
I do. I usually do because then I know when I get back home, it's back to just the daily grind and all of reality that you could get away from for just a little while kind of slams you in the face when you get back. But I have some plans in place to ease that transition.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Can you give us an example of how you ease that transition?
I take some of the things that I enjoyed, especially on my vacation, and find little ways to incorporate that into my life. Because this last week we did spend at a cabin in the woods, and I live in a rural area anyway. So even though it's really hot and I can't be
Hmm.
outside a lot in the summertime where I am, I will still now make sure I go out at least a few minutes early in the morning and then a few minutes late at night because I found this past week just being in nature really helped to reset my mental health, and that was
Yeah.
something I needed. So I'm this time going to incorporate more of spending time out in nature, leaving the phone inside, maybe even putting one day a week
Hmm.
where I go no phone and except in case of emergencies and just spend one day away from technology because that was something else I found that was very peaceful to me too was to limit how much time I spent online. So I'm thinking I
Yeah.
could do that one day a week. If not one day a week, at least one day a month.
Nature is great for that, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I'm going camping in about a month, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. Did you get to watch many movies or anything on your recent getaway? Or is
We didn't watch any movies, any TV. There was a TV on like in the cabin when we got there, but it was playing music. And I turned that off and we watched nothing.
that's nice? Yeah,
It was.
it's just it helps the brain, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Like it, you got to get that gray matter there arrested every so often. Did you read much?
I did. I had planned to read Ken by Keelan Patrick Burke for kind of the aesthetic setting because it's in a cabin in the
Yeah.
woods in Alabama. And I live in Alabama, but our cabin was in Mississippi. So, comparable. So I was like going to get into the horror of cannibals in the woods while I was in the woods. But I was already reading Night Film by Marisha Pessel, and I wanted to finish that before I read Ken. So I did not finish Night Film, but I read quite a bit of it while I was on vacation, and I have 100 pages left now. But I
Nice.
am obsessed with it. I'm absolutely in love with it.
Nice. I've read that. That's pretty. It's a kin anyway. I want to read Night Film. Uh, so that's a good one, eh?
It's so good. I called it, and other people may have said this before, but to me, it is like House of Leaves meets Twin Peaks, which both of those things will grab my attention. So
Yeah.
I really, really like it.
That's good. That's awesome. Um, yeah. The other one, by Keelan Patrick Burke. That one. It's funny how people like to go to the cabin and then read horrible things that happen to people at the cabin. I'm always fascinated by that, but I do it too. So
Mhm.
Uh, so how's Literary Love 123 going, and what have you been doing there lately?
It is going well. I have a couple of exciting projects. I've launched 2 book clubs because why can I, not do anything just simple? I got to aim for the stars, but one of them is the Literary Love Book Club, where we will mostly be reading horror, but we'll also be reading some literary fiction. And then the other book club was actually the brainchild of a friend of mine, Travis, who also lives in Alabama. I'm in the southern part of the state. He's in the northern part of the state, but he had been wanting to do a book club that focused on authors from Alabama or stories set in Alabama. So he and I together are running the Southern Stories Society book club. So it will be alternating months between the 2 book clubs. The June book club pick that we're currently reading for Literary Love Book Club is Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. And then next month in July for the Southern Stories Society book club, we'll be reading The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So those are exciting things. And then I am hosting my first event in November called Vamp Vember, where we will read, watch, and do activities all about vampires. So
Nice.
I'm excited.
That is exciting. I love vampires, so I'm gonna maybe follow along and maybe read along too.
Yes,
Awesome. So, before we get into the Boogeyman, because this one has a fairly recent adaptation, I was wondering if do you read or sorry watch a lot of Stephen King adaptations, and if so, what are some of your favorites?
I do. I know that it's going to be very rare that I actually enjoy them because I'm so picky, but there are several that I do enjoy. The first one would be Carrie, Brian De Palma's Carrie, the original. I don't fault that movie. I don't think for anything. Some changes from the book, but none that really upset me. And I think
Hmm.
that movie is an excellent depiction of Carrie. And for nostalgia's sake, I love Silver Bullet, which is the adaptation of Cycle of the Werewolf.
Yeah.
But there are some problematic issues with Silver Bullet, but I love the Gary Busey of it all. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
I have so much fun with that one. Salem's Lot, the
Mhm.
mini series
Oh, I love that.
OG. I have not watched the updated mini series. I did watch the horrible, horrible HBO Max
Yeah.
Salem's Lot movie, which really pissed me off. I hated everything about it.
I like
Sorry if
I like that.
anybody out
Yeah.
there. Sorry if you liked it, Jason. I'm sorry. I hated it.
You know what? I did like it, but it wasn't an adaptation. It was like its own thing, honestly.
It
I mean,
was.
it did follow some of the things closely, but they followed all the things I felt that they shouldn't have. They should have left it to the novel, like the glowing crosses
Yes.
and like the first adaptation, that miniseries, that did it perfectly, I think.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love that one. And then Pet Cemetery, the original, I did not care for the remake, but the
Yeah.
original Pet Cemetery, I liked it.
Love it.
And then Gerald's Game, what
That's a good one too,
would
yeah.
have seemingly been an impossible novel to adapt for film, but if anybody could do it, Mike Flanagan. There are a
Mhm.
couple of issues I have with that adaptation, but overall, I really like that one a lot.
I speaking of Mike Flanagan, I'm really angry because Life of Chuck was just released. And do you think anywhere near me is playing it? No, they are not. Not the town that's near me that plays all the new movies, not even like close to Toronto. Which is like I wouldn't travel that far for a movie anyway, but even they aren't playing it. I don't understand what's going. It's got a worldwide release, so why not around here?
Right.
I need to go see that movie.
I do too, and I don't know. I've seen places that it's showing in the United States, and I don't know if that means that's the only places it's showing, but if that's the case, none are close to me either. So that also upsets me because I do love that short story,
Yeah,
and
me
I
too.
really want to watch this movie also like you.
These people. They
Hmm.
tease you. Oh, it's worldwide release. Go watch it June 9th or whatever. And is it available? No, it's not.
Exactly.
All right, so we should move on to the Boogeyman. What do you think?
All right. Sounds good.
Alrighty, so warning to the listener: we will be spoiling the Boogeyman, as we will be spoiling all these stories. History of this story: it was first published in Cavalier, as many of these stories were, in March of 1973. Cavalier, if you don't know, is a men's magazine that often featured early King stories, but they also featured, some women in, naked. They were the naughty magazines. It was collected in The Night Shift, released in 1978, which is King's first short story collection, and it was adapted a couple of times. I did not know this until I looked into it. There's quite a few short films over the years, most notably in 1982 and 2005. But the major feature film adaptation was in 2023, directed by Rob Savage, and is very loosely based on the short story. And the synopsis is: Lester Billings visits a psychiatrist, Dr. Harper, to confess the terrifying deaths of his three children. According to Lester, all three died under mysterious circumstances after screaming about a creature in their closet called the Boogeyman. While claiming he had nothing to do with their deaths, his guilt, fear, and paranoia grow increasingly intense. So, what is your history of reading this short story?
This is one that I actually had not read until I was going to be on the podcast with you.
Nice, nice.
I had not read it. I had seen the film adaptation when it came out, which I usually make myself read before I watch something, but I went
Hmm.
ahead and watched the movie. So reading it for the podcast was my first experience with it.
Awesome. That makes me happy because I talked to Jonathan Jans and
Mhm.
for an earlier episode, and he said that he went and rebought the collection for the podcast. And I was like, oh God, I feel so bad. Like I made Jonathan Jans go buy a book.
That's awesome though.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I read The Boogeyman, I don't know how long ago. It was probably in the 90s somewhere when I read the collection first time. And like I said, as with all the other stories, I didn't really remember it much. But then I reread it for this podcast, and it was like, oh yeah, this is an interesting story. And also watching I watched the adaptation for it like when it first came out,
Mhm.
and then honestly, that one slipped from my mind too. When I was rewatching it, I was like, okay, I kind of remember this, but I know I watched it before. I remember certain parts, but it just kind of slipped. The story, I don't know. It seemed to me like it's easy to slip from your memory. Do you find this as well at all?
I did with the movie. There were, like you said, parts of the movie that I remembered, but going back and rewatching the movie last night, I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." Like, I didn't even realize Sophie Thatcher was the actress in it, and I love her on Yellow Jackets and
Hmm.
Heretic and Companion. And so going back and watching it, I'm like, "Oh my god, that's Sophie Thatcher," and I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, there's so many things in there that I didn't remember. It might have had a the night we did first watch it. I watched it with my wife, and we watched it after a few drinks, so that may have played a role in
You
my.
think that might have had a little bit to do with it.
So, what is your own personal interpretation of the Boogeyman, or how did you react to reading it?
I hate Lester Billings in this
Yeah.
story. What a piece of shit. All this stuff he says. I started reading it not, I really started looking at it as what if he did it? And I
Hmm.
marked some stuff that I think could be evidence that he actually is the one
Oh, that's interesting.
that killed his kids. I mean, there are, counter views that can go against that, but I just really started looking at it that way.
Yeah, that's what I like about this story because you can take it for face value that this guy
Mhm.
is experiencing something supernatural, but on the other hand, he might be like psychotic, having psychotic breaks and not realizing it, because there's evidence, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's blood and stuff, and do you have your list of pieces of evidence? We might as well get into it now since you mentioned it.
Yeah, I marked like in my book. I just, I'm a book murderer, some people might call it, but I like mark
Yeah,
stuff and in my book. So I do. Do you want me to just launch
yeah,
into
let's
everything
do
I
it.
marked?
Yeah.
All right. So, like at the beginning of the story, when Lester is explaining to Dr. Harper about his view on children, he says, children tie a man down.
Mhm.
Women like that, especially when the man is brighter than they. Hate this guy.
For
Um,
people on the podcast only, you have to go watch the video just to see Jen's face at that point. It's
yes.
very good.
I'll try to convey my voice to match the look I just gave about this guy. But it's already from the outset that he has this view of children that they're just going to tie him down.
Hmm.
And for some reason, he feels like he's so much smarter than his wife. So he's kind of given the impression that she has trapped him in this. And he'll talk about that later, too.
Hmm.
And then he talks about how the child wanted a nightlight, and his wife, Rita, so I don't keep saying his wife, Rita, wanted to give the child a nightlight, and he didn't because he said that you don't want to coddle your children because then they might grow up to be sissies.
Hmm.
Again, this guy. But it's also there the fact that he's afraid if his children grow up that they're not going to be what he wants them to be.
Hmm.
So perhaps he goes ahead and snuffs their lives out early so they can't grow up and disappoint them. And then he talks about losing his job, or struggling with the job he had at a certain warehouse. And he talks about the kid crying all the time. And he actually says to the psychiatrist, Christ, kids drive you crazy sometimes. You could kill them. Now, I have kids, and I will acknowledge kids can drive you crazy sometimes. And somebody might offhandedly make that statement. But coming from this guy, I just read more into it. And then he starts
Absolutely.
talking about how the kid had started wetting, their pants again and was having to wear diapers and rubber pants. So he was going to be inconvenienced by that. And that's when he says, I loved that kid. And he says that a few times. Like, that also made me suspicious. Maybe I'm reading into too much into it, but that's what I do. But it made me suspicious. Why does he keep having to tell the psychiatrist, I love that kid. I loved that kid. I love that kid. And
Hmm.
then he talks about the closet door being open, and he says that there's dry cleaning bags in there. A kid messes around with one of those, bingo, asphyxiation. You know that? So he's very hyper fixated on this idea of the dry cleaning bags asphyxiating the child. And this is the child also that was said to have died of SIDS.
Hmm.
So again, I was like, did you do this? And then he does, he keeps putting all of his other kids in there too, even though he knows what happened the other times. And the final kid that he, dies, it happens when the wife is away. And he's
Hmm.
talking about having to deal with the kid all by himself and how hard that was. So I'm like, hmm. And
Hmm.
I just want to say one other thing about this guy that pisses me off so much. When he talks about his wife being a jellyfish and coddling the kids, and he
Yeah.
says, look how easy she went to bed with me when we weren't married.
Yeah.
But I love the psychiatrist response to him and says, on the other hand, look how easily you went to bed with her. And I was like,
Good one. Yeah.
thank you. But then he just keeps on reiterating the fact that kids get on his nerves, because he even has the one part after their three kids have died and his wife wants to have another child. He says, well, then we have to get a sitter anytime we want to go out. So do you really want another child? So things like that just made me really start thinking this guy is the one who did this.
It's very possible. I mean, one out of three is, I wouldn't say normal, but acceptable, sort of,
Right.
right? As far as acceptable can go when it comes to child loss. But when all three of the kids under your care uh, die,
Yes.
there might be something wrong here. And yet, but the police never really, at least as far as we know, the police never really
Right.
questioned him, right? Or at
Right.
least had him as a suspect. He never admits it though, so maybe there's something there too. He's just not talking about it. How far do you think it goes for him to not even maybe even realize that he's doing this? That maybe he's having a psychotic break, or is he just hiding it from the psychiatrist? Because in my mind, if he's going to a psychiatrist to talk about this, that he did it, it would be more of like a confession, right? So why is he hiding that?
I think he possibly is having a break because even at the end of the story, he sees the doctor is really the boogeyman.
Yeah.
So I think it could be that he is having a break, and maybe also he knows that he did it, but he can't handle what he's done.
Hmm.
So then he develops these ways of coping with it and saying, it's the boogeyman, it's the boogeyman, it's the boogeyman.
Yeah.
So, but the movie makes it a lot clearer as to whether this is psychological or supernatural. But the story leaves it up to a little bit of interpretation.
I think you're onto something, though. I think that's maybe what the story is about because it's just in his character, too. He's unable to look at himself in any negative way whatsoever. He can't self reflect.
Right.
Everything, he's a bit of if not a complete narcissist,
Hmm.
where it's everyone else's fault, but he's the innocent guy here. Everyone knows that kids are annoying. Everyone knows
Right.
that wives are annoying, and that he's just this gentle dude who's trying to
Right.
live his life, right?
Right. Who got stuck with this wife and these
Yeah,
kids.
and absolutely none of that is his fault.
Right.
He kind of reminds me of, I shouldn't say that maybe, but I was thinking of like a modern day Trump supporter.
Oh, yeah. Everything is everybody else's fault, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But I know people like that who aren't Trump supporters too. It's like a mental thing. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's, it's
Yeah.
like, the narcissism and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can definitely say that Lester is an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
And we don't know if we should take his word or not. But I think you're right. The short story definitely shows evidence to the latter. So I guess you prefer this story as psychological horror over the supernatural.
I do. I do. Now, I did read, and I think it was on Reddit, where one person was saying that they think it's definitely supernatural because King at this time was not writing more, he was writing more supernatural than psychological. I don't know how true that is or if I agree with that or not, but I want to put that out there too, that there is an argument that no, 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 this is strictly supernatural. So there are other opinions, and I think that's what makes it interesting.
I would argue against that in that Stephen King, he's a pretty smart cookie.
Yeah.
And he's definitely able, even back then, especially like at any period of his writing career, which is very long, he's able
Hmm.
to go back and forth.
Yes.
There's I'm certain there's examples of him writing more psychological. I mean, you go back to like the last episode where I was talking with Daniel Brom about the Mangler. There's
Hmm.
no way around it. That's a supernatural horror story.
Right.
But this one, he leaves it ambiguous,
He
right?
does.
He lets you think either way. But I think honestly, this is what I was thinking when I was reading it. That he's the one who did this, and you brilliantly pulled out more than I did with your evidence, and and now I'm convinced. But it's not a far step. It's not such a big step for Stephen King to go with that and to
Right.
bring in like a supernatural element for the reader if that's what they want.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, so there's some interesting themes and symbolism in the story, I thought, anyways, and we've already brushed upon one of them, and that's bad parenting.
Yes. Yes.
But Lester, I wanted to talk about this because I think people might get confused with this being like Stephen King writing about himself. I think he's writing from more of an angle of or irresponsible parents, and that's
Yes.
probably something that's pissed him off throughout the years. I mean, we all know that Stephen King wasn't a perfect father. He did have his
Right.
drinking problems and whatnot, but I don't think he would have ever talked about his kids the way Lester here talks about his kids.
No.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
and we know Stephen King, like, his writing is his therapy. I think he said that before.
hmm
And since his father abandoned him when he and his brother were very young, he's pretty much raised by his mother. I have to wonder sometimes if some of the things that Lester is saying are not things that Stephen King thought growing up that his father must have thought about
hmm
kids and thought about him. And that's why his father abandoned them. So, yeah, I definitely think it's more of his dealing with what his father did or his own fears as a parent. Because if we're being honest, we all have thoughts, maybe not to the degree that Lester Billings does, but we have thoughts. And then we have fears that are we a good enough parent?
hmm
We struggle with the ways that we messed up. So I'm sure Stephen King's probably also grappling with his failures, like you said, too.
Oh, for sure. And I'm sure he's gone through it over and over again with, recovery and AA
Hmm.
and all that. Um, but that you bring up a good point that a lot of parents, I mean, you're only human, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't understand that they're not in control of their thoughts. The thoughts just appear out of nowhere. And it's how you react to those thoughts that
Yes.
really either get you or you can let them go. And I think that's a brilliant thing that you brought up there because a lot of people are going to read this and say, oh shit, maybe I'm a terrible parent because I
Right.
had that same thought, right? But if you feel bad about that, then you're not the same guy
Exactly. It
because
took me
Lester will
many
justify it.
years of therapy to realize that thoughts are just, like they come into your head and then you can just let them go.
Yeah, that's what the mind does. It's just doing its job.
Mhm.
It doesn't know right from wrong necessarily. It's just going to shove an image in there,
Yep.
or and a thought, some words. But it that's not your fault. It's just the human brain doing its job, and you don't
Exactly.
have to you don't have to respond to it. But people like Lester do respond to it because they believe everything that pops into their head. That's an interesting psychological thing right there. I love that. But let's go to the supernatural here. Let's just say it was supernatural because I like the idea of there being a boogeyman that's taking
Mhm.
children, not in real life, but just in
Right.
fictional format. And the closet, it can be the spookiest door. I think in fiction or in real life when you're a kid, because
Mhm.
most kids like this story resonates because most kids are afraid of the boogeyman.
Mhm.
For example, when I was a kid, I was afraid because thanks Christianity, I was afraid that my bed was sinking into hell. So I'd get
Mhm.
up out of bed and I'd check the four legs, make sure that they were all even, that it wasn't sinking at all,
Mhm.
because I was afraid I was going to go to hell. And
Mhm.
I was also afraid of this. It wasn't the attic or the closet door I was afraid of, but we had this opening in our ceiling, in my bedroom ceiling, that went to like a tiny attic. It was just a small square. You couldn't fit through it really
Mhm.
unless you're really tiny. And it had a covering, and I was afraid something would come from that and come and get me. Did you have any boogeymen when you were a child, or boogeyman areas?
You know, I don't remember being afraid of, my closet door or under my bed as a kid. I'm sure I was at some point. I remember my younger sister had more fear of the dark, and I'm trying to like pinpoint if I did. I know I wasn't this fearless kid who didn't have any issues, but
Mhm.
I think the creepiest kind of things that would happen to me when I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and I would just feel certain that my parents were in the living room watching TV because I could hear the TV. I know I heard the TV, and I'd go up there and I'd look, but nobody would be in there. Nobody would be watching anything. And
Hmm.
that used to scare me more than anything else. This idea of, as a kid, why am I hearing this TV? Who is this? What is this? Go in there, and my parents aren't in there. So that's the only thing I can think of that really creeped me out as a kid, and I don't know why, but it did.
That's valid. Totally. My son, he was actually a good closet. He was afraid of his closet, and he would come into our room every night. I mean every night, wanting to
Mhm.
sleep with us because he was afraid. Um, yeah, that's fun. Just remembering that kind of stuff. But before we stop, I do want to brush up on the structure and pacing because the story is a little bit different for Stephen King in that it's mostly dialogue.
Mhm.
It's dialogue heavy between, I guess, a potential patient and a psychiatrist. How do you feel that the psychiatrist session here, this structure adds to the tension of the story?
I feel like we're in the role of the psychiatrist in a lot of ways, and we're getting piece by piece what's happened. So that 3 kids, all 3 of this man's children have died, and you don't really know exactly how, so you're kind of waiting to find out what happened to all 3 of them, so you're a little on edge with that. And I feel like too, as part of leaving it up for interpretation, that also puts us in the role of the psychiatrist to try to figure out what is really going on here, with this man.
Hmm. Awesome. I kind of like that too because like as the story progresses, it's the more you feel that this dude might be responsible, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a certain level to that, right? Like, well, he starts off the story. I think I'll read the very first couple of paragraphs here because it starts off kind of strong. It says, "I came to you because I wanted to tell my story," the man on Dr. Harper's couch was saying. The man was Lester Billings from Waterbury, Connecticut. According to the history taken from Nurse Vickers, he was 28, unemployed by an industrial firm in New York, divorced, and the father of 3 children, all deceased. I can't go to a priest because I'm not Catholic. I can't go to a lawyer because I haven't done anything to consult a lawyer about. All I did was kill my kids, one at a time. Killed them all. Dr. Harper turned on the tape recorder. Billings lay straight as a yardstick on the couch, not giving an inch of himself. See, this is something I like about this is that he pushes a sentence like that out, a couple of sentences. All I did was
Mhm.
kill my kids, one at a time, killed them all.
Mhm.
And then Dr. Harper turns on the tape recording, and then he decides to describe how this man
Yes.
is lying down on his couch. So his feet are protruded stiffly over the end. Picture of a man enduring necessary humiliation. His hands are folded corpse like on his chest. His face was carefully set. He looked at the plain white composition ceiling as if seeing scenes, excuse me, and pictures played out there. Do you mean you actually killed them? Or. No, impatient flick of the hand. But I was responsible. Danny in 1967, Cheryl in 1971, and Andy this year. I want to tell you about it. So it starts off really, really strong
Mhm.
with him saying, I killed my kids.
Right.
And then he's like, no, I didn't actually kill them. I'm just responsible.
Yes.
But that's the way the story goes. Like it hooks you like that, and then it pulls back a little, but then it steadily grows and grows and grows again.
Mhm.
So I love that about this story. It's an interesting structure. Um, I'm having an error here pop up. Hopefully, it's nothing important. Do you see an error on your screen?
No, it's not showing up for me.
Hopefully, it doesn't mean anything. We're about to wrap up on this one, I think. Anyway, Um, I just want to like we could compare this to other Stephen King books before, or at least storylines before we go,
Hmm.
like childhood trauma. Stephen King does visit that a lot, like with books like It
Yes.
and whatnot. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the childhood trauma aspect of this story?
It also kind of reminded me, just with the closet fear, of Cujo. I
Cujo,
cannot
yeah.
think. Tad's the little boy's name, and Cujo, but he was afraid, and he said there was a monster in his closet. So that again, it kind of made me think about just childhood trauma, because his parents were having some marital issues, and we know, spoiler, but Donna, the main character in Cujo, is having an affair. So possibly Tad's reading, kind of picking up on some kind of issues with his parents' marriage. So there's the trauma of dealing with that. And then his actual fear that there's a monster in his closet. And then in this story, this father is dealing with trauma from the deaths of his children. Even if he is responsible, um, he's still going to be dealing with trauma from it. So
Hmm.
just that idea of something being hidden in the closet, something's lurking there in your psyche that you aren't quite aware of it, but it could also have physical manifestations if we are going into the idea of the supernatural.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Is there anything you'd like to add to this short story? Any notes that we didn't discuss?
Um, just want to reiterate how much I hate this character, Lester Billings.
King is so good at creating hateful characters, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Because he makes them seem so real. They're not
Mhm.
caricatures. They're not uh, clowns necessarily. They're, or like with makeup on and the hoots and hollerings. They're real people, and we've met
Yes.
people like this. And I
Yes,
think that's
because
why
there are
King.
points I did feel empathy, and some sort of sympathy for Lester. So, like you said, it's not just this flat character, it's multidimensional, and King is great at that. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I just want to let the listeners know, if you want to listen to us talk about the adaptation, the 2023 adaptation of The Boogeyman, head on over and join the Deadlights Club over on my Patreon, and you'll be able to listen to that. It's only like $4 a month. It's less than a couple of coffees, I think. Maybe even just the same amount. I don't know what coffee costs these days because I make my own, but
Yeah, that's probably less than 1 cup at, Starbucks,
yeah, absolutely.
possibly.
Starbucks, you have to like remortgage the house to have coffee for the week.
Exactly.
So head on over to the Patreon and join the Deadlights Club there. That tier will give you episodes like that. And I want to thank you, Jen, for joining me again. And feel free to plug anything you want to again, or anything you didn't discuss before we go.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I always enjoy talking with you. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads under Literary Love 123.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you again soon.